region is from Nashville, Tennessee, up to Baltimore. And so
Wow.
Richard, yeah, so Richard is actually a formal mentor of mine, just from an operation standpoint, just continuing to learn that piece of the business better. And as we were talking through succession planning, with all of my sales managers, even my counterparts, we always look for, whether it's the class or course or it's the mentor relationship, what options do we have out there for partners? And that's where your name came up. And he mentioned to me, I'm very familiar with Jason Sistrunk. I haven't called him to say, hey, tell me how that relationship is going. But he did brief me on just some of the things that you've worked with some of his partners on. And so that's where I'm glad that you reached out, because I do want to understand, what do you do? How do you charge? What's available? So that anything that you've offered to Cintas, I can maybe piggyback off of and offer.
Sure. Sure. I guess now you're in Baton Rouge, but your territory isn't in Richard's
Correct.
territory, right?
Correct. Last year it was. I had Louisiana. I had Arkansas. He's got Arkansas. I don't know that he has Texas, but yeah, the region shifted. And so, but that's not unusual for me. Some directors get a region and they stay there until their next level, but I've been moved around as regions have shifted, and our business division is growing quite rapidly. So,
what would you say are some of the prime challenges that you're experiencing in your scope of work with your team?
I would say we've got leaders who come in, and based on how quickly we need them at the next level, the speed to ramp them up, to get them, whether it's their platform skills, their organization, their time management, their ability to be a challenging leader, getting them to ramp up much quicker to be ready for that next level. I think in today's world, the balance and how do you effectively communicate and ensure everyone is on track with what the focus areas are. I think there's a lot of noise and distraction. Yeah. So I can't not look back on these past 6 months and think about those challenges. But I would say those are the biggest two. I mean, we want our partners to be ready for the next step. And in the meantime, we want them to be able to get results without getting so bogged down in the day-to-day.
Right. Well, of course, presentation skills and sales is one of the main arenas that I play in. And a lot of that interacts with leadership development, as well as service culture and design. And I love the service culture at Cintas. I've worked with a lot of your partners, and I have a profound appreciation for how your organization is structured and how it's disciplined. I tell Cintas people all the time, I couldn't work for Cintas.
Right? That's funny.
I'll be honest. I mean, it is it's tight.
It's regimented. Yes.
It's very regimented, very tight, and that's certainly a good thing. Your HR people would probably say, well, I don't think he's going to be a fit for for us as a permanent employee.
Yeah, I've got many friends that have the same thoughts. Hey, I couldn't do it. I'm glad you do. I love that you'll have that, but that's just not for me.
Yeah.
So.
And I say that just to let you know what a great respect I have for you and people like you who adopt that kind of discipline. I mean, I have disciplines in other areas. Okay, it's just it's just not within as tight a structure as you guys. And I always like to share that with my Cintas partners that I work with. So, but I do understand your culture, and I respect it a lot, because I think from what I've seen, you guys truly follow through and live up to your brand, which you don't see in a lot of companies, even Fortune 500 companies like Cintas. You don't see that. A lot of times you see too much of a silo mentality, where the team doesn't share the corporate vision. The team members don't share the corporate vision because there doesn't seem to be a common thread that runs through everybody. But unlike that, I do see that at Cintas, and it makes it easier to work with you and your colleagues as a result. Getting to the presentation aspect, and when Richard and I were talking, he says one of the identifying characteristics of good leaders and people who advance through the ranks and who appear to advance rapidly through the ranks at Cintas are the ones that are able to communicate, who are able to express themselves and make presentations and have an executive presence about themselves. And that's a word people say, well, what does that really mean, executive presence? What to me, and what I follow from an executive presence standpoint, is the ability to walk into a room and own the space. Whether that room is a phone call, whether that room is a Zoom call, or whether you're actually in the presence of a group, of an individual, of a prospect, of a client, or whatever, it's to own the room, to own the space, to have that level of confidence, that air of not an air of arrogance, but that air of confidence that you know what you're doing. You know your company, you know what you are standing behind, and you believe what you're standing behind. That, coupled with the ability to put together significant presentations, slide decks, how to create slide decks that are meaningful and memorable to the people, because I don't have to tell you, when you say PowerPoint, people think power nap. It's time for a power nap, right? When the eyes
How many are we going through? Yeah.
Oh God! And look, I have seen some that have been produced by Cincinnati, by, I don't know, IT department or something, and man, you go to sleep after.
Slides.
Oh, just and so much information on there. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, I work with my clients on really, injecting, not to totally revamp everything, but inject some components that become memorable. Put a little humorous slide in, a picture that reinforces the message, that when they hear the term, when they hear the word, they hear the phrase, immediately there's a visual connection to it, which makes them more effective presenters. And around that, don't just present, but tell a story.
Right.
Tell a story that has a point to it, and that has a call to action. Okay, and a lot of it can be personal experiences. I know when I was working with Jason, we went through a lot of that storytelling, where he didn't think that there were some stories that were relevant. And I said, man, you've got a room full of people. Tell them that, so many years ago, you were sitting in that place, and this is what you thought. And whatever it is you thought, I guarantee you half of the people in the room are thinking the same thing. And when you share those experiences and you share those stories, they become memorable, they become repeatable, they're reinforced. And it's having the ability to do that, as you know, helps people move up the ladder. Their supervisors, their superiors have confidence in their ability to communicate the mission, to communicate the vision, whether it's to coworkers or whether it's to customers, and to maintain, develop relationships in the process. So that's, that's the primary focus. And of course, there are leadership components that come into that in my discussions when I'm working one-on-one with partners, just to identify, because everyone's unique, everyone's different. We all have different strengths, different weaknesses, different personalities. And what I strive to do is to extricate the best of their personality to bring to the forefront in a sincere way. We don't want anybody BSing anybody, right? We want to present the facts, and we want to present the sincerity and the genuineness that's going to put us in a position of being that executive, being that someone who is respected and who understands how to conduct this meeting, how to present at this conference or in this boardroom or over the phone, to where they create an interactive component that keeps everybody involved.
Yeah.
It's not a one-way conversation.
Right. Now, what Richard and I love all of that. I appreciate you giving me just the level, because as you're talking, I'm thinking about various leaders that may lack certain pieces of that or how to package that completely. Um, when Richard and I spoke, it was very high level. Here's the general, what you've been able to do with Jason, or you have calls, but I don't know the specifics on pricing. How long are the sessions? Is there a certain level that, hey, this level is the sweet spot within the company that you've been able to work with? So can you give me a little bit of color there?
As far as the pricing, it depends on the scope of the work that, if you say, okay, Fred, I have this many people, or I want you to work with me, or I want you to work with this group, I would assess what's needed and
Okay.
how much time I'll be spending with them. And I don't work on the clock. Okay. I work on the outcomes. And sometimes the outcomes can be accomplished in 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes it takes longer. It just depends.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be evasive, but that's the way I approach it. So once we've identified, you say, okay, Fred, I have these partners that I would like for you to work with. These are their key issues. This is where I want to take them. Then what I would do is give you a proposal, and that would, and then you could review that, and it would outline how my work will go. There'll be a lot of, and again, it depends on where they are. I can do the virtual thing. I love doing in person whenever possible,
Yeah.
and I don't mind traveling. If you have partners in other states that we can get together for a half-day session, let's say, if we can program that, then I'll go and take care of that. So you and I would work out the strategy, the strategic approach as to how to execute it, and
Okay.
that would all weigh in.
So I'm just going to give you two examples of, what comes to mind when I think about how we could best leverage you. And one is that one-on-one, similar to Jason, where, there's the direct coaching and feedback. And, I don't know if you do it quarterly, like, hey, for a quarter, there's a couple of sessions, or if it's over a 6-month or 12-month period. But what would you do in the one-on-one setting, and just generally speaking? And then in terms of another thing that's come up, especially considering how much remote presenting is going on via
Yeah.
Teams, and with
Yeah.
customers and leaders having to lead in that way to coach partners. If there was a group of, let's say, 25,
Uh-huh.
and it was literally on a couple hour training on maximizing your virtual presentation, whether it's the customer, like, what does that need to look like? What should you encompass in that?
Mm-hmm.
Can you ballpark, just so that I can have enough to go back to leadership from a budgeting standpoint on what avenue makes the most sense?
Okay. The 2 hour, let's say a 2 hour workshop for the 25 that you mentioned, would that be a virtual
It would be.
workshop? Okay.
Yeah.
The one-on-one can range anywhere from around $2,700 to $3,200 per person.
Okay.
And the 2 hour virtual, and it doesn't just stop with the 2 hour virtual. I always have follow-up components where we'll regroup, because I mean, I can lay it all out, but unless we follow up and monitor the progress,
Right.
find out what's working for everybody, it would really be more than 1 2 hour sessions. It would probably be 2 or 3 sessions. The subsequent sessions would not be as long as 2 hours, maybe a 40-minute catch up, a Q&A, ask me anything. What are the stumbling blocks? What kind of progress are you making, where we can get everyone on the, and have a group discussion and interaction with
Okay.
everyone. And that would be something that would probably be in the range of around $5,500.
Okay. Got it.
If that kind of gives you a little bit of
It
a
does.
ballpark.
Yeah. So what I can do with this information is Are you familiar with succession planning within the company?
I don't know the details. I know what
Okay.
it's about.
Yeah.
I don't know all the particulars. I know certain people are identified and
Right.
planning to groom them for higher positions, for
Yes.
growth in the organization.
Exactly. So we're in that mode right now, and I have specific meetings next week around several partners that with senior leadership, we will put our heads together on their development plan. And so I can have some one-off conversations on who it would potentially make sense for in the one-on-one. And then my counterpart, I actually have a call with him this afternoon. So we've been looking for some type of training for all of our leaders, but from a, what we are willing to spend on that, right? I'll talk with him about where our budget lies for that so that he and I can be on the same page. And look, I'll share with you transparently, hey, if it was around this, what would we get for that amount?
Sure.
Or if it's the 2 hour with a couple of session at this amount, what would that entail, right? So we can take this conversation farther. But those would be the two, as I think about present need, the two different routes that I would take with
Okay.
what you want.
Okay. Yeah.
So I just have to do some digging and homework and see
Yeah.
exactly what would make the most sense.
Okay. Yeah. And that remote, the virtual interaction it's really critical. It's because it's to hold people's attention. You have to create more interaction than you do in a room.
Right.
I mean, in a room, it's a lot easier to hold people's attention. Whereas when you're in a virtual environment with, 20 people on a call and 20 screens, and it's easy to, click off your video and go get a drink of water or check your email and all of that.
Right.
So what I do in situations like that, I pretty much forewarn everyone that at the end of a component, I'm going to be asking you questions. So pay attention.
Right.
I want you to be thinking about your own, and I'm going to call on you randomly to share some of your thoughts. So that keeps people engaged, and also have the opportunity to raise your hand if you have a question. And, because this is not about me. This is about you. This is about bringing the best that you have out. Okay.
Right.
And I'm the guide. You have a problem. The problem basically is you want to be a better presenter. You want to be more engaging. I'll guide you through the process on how to do that.
Okay. So there's no, in terms of, have you worked with sales managers in the past within the company, or has it been director level and above?
Well, I've worked with Jason. I've worked with Charlie Davidson. I've worked with Patrick. I've done a little work with Aunt Sharika. But with sales manager, I guess. Charlie's the one. Yeah, the one that I've worked with.
Okay. Again, because I just want to be able to reference that.
Feel free to give Charlie a call too if you like.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and I see his work, and even with Jason, I being in the Louisiana market, I see what they do and how they have grown over the years. But whenever I go back to my counterpart as well as my boss, and we're talking about ways that we can develop these partners, I just want to be able to reference that, just to
sure.
say, hey,
Yeah, please.
because they're not so familiar with those partners, but that helps. And, I will circle back around with you on any questions that I have or any opportunities that are current that we can move forward with. But there may potentially, with everything going on right now, it could be that it's more of a second half of the year. Once January rolls around, our fiscal year, I don't know if goes from June to May. Sure, you're very well aware of that.
Yeah.
But it may be a second half of the year investment because some of the partners that I'm thinking about, they already have corporate classes that are now back on virtually. And so their calendars, they're just packed. So just being transparent there.
Okay, no, that's good. That's fine.
Perfect.
I don't necessarily work on a tight
Right.
calendar. I have some clients that I'm working with. I've got on the calendar for June of next year. So
Right.
that's fine. That's fine.
Perfect. Well, I'll keep you
Okay.
posted. And I greatly
Okay.
appreciate your time today.
Oh, you're quite welcome. You have my contact information.
Thank you.
Feel free to call me. You know, if you think about something that we didn't cover today and you'd like an answer, just pick up the phone, give me a call. If I can talk with you, I answer it. If not, I'll get back to you.
Sounds good. Well, I
Okay.
appreciate it. And so very
All right.
nice to meet you.
It's very nice meeting you as well.
Have a good day.
I
Thanks
will.
so
Thank you.
much.
Okay. Thank you.
See ya.